All right. Welcome back to Strife's Talking Points. I want to cover this story real quick, and I already have the comments pulled up here. This is a New York Times article from May 31st, Friday. And we're just going to break it down with a little bit of extra info from some of the other Google News sites. Now, one, what confrontation? Mexico seeks a compromise with Trump. If you don't know, President Trump has basically issued a, let's call it a threat, a decree, not really sure how to take Trump half the time. Mr. Trump said Thursday he would impose a 5% tariff on all goods from Mexico starting June the 10th and then gradually increase tariffs to 25% unless the flow of undocumented migrants crossing through Mexico and into the United States is remedied. Just went full George Bush there and couldn't read. Mexican president said that his envoys, oh my God, I can't read today. Mexican president said that his envoys would present evidence to American officials they have already been trying to slow the tide of migration in the hopes that diplomacy might quell the brewing storm. Now, this is New York Times. They go into a long list of basically trying to support one side of the argument. He said, in anticipation time, Trump would abandon his threat because these measures don't suit Mexicans nor the Americans. Now, in the U.S. right now, we have dozens of pictures and videos and stories all over the place now, even coming from the New York Times about these massive migrant caravans coming in, you know, the number being about 12 million in the U.S., I believe, as of 2019. $115 billion a year spent on illegal aliens, and them producing about $10 billion in tax revenues. Also, a lot of the stuff you get on this too is identity theft, illegal driver's license. These basically sanctuary states where they can't be deported, they can't be arrested, they're not held, they're just kind of dumped out back and forth because it's very difficult to deal with them. Each time Mr. Lopez has adopted a measured posture, urging dialogue and continuing on mutual economic interest to prevail, and so far his bets paid off and Trump has stepped back. So they're going through this. Now, skip down to the bottom. His administration has even initiated an effort to issue expedited humanitarian visas to Central Americans, which allowed them to work or travel anywhere in Mexico. But the welcoming approach appeared to spur even more migration out of Central America, with many migrants seeking to use Mexico as a way station on their way to the United States. The influx has overwhelmed the resources of local governments along Mexico's northern and southern borders and tested patience of residents. You can go and watch videos of Tijuana residents. They do not like them there. They really, really didn't like them there. In recent weeks, under pressure, Mr. Trump as well from his local Mexican authorities, the Lopez administration appears to have been ramping up enforcement efforts, getting tougher on caravans, rounding up more undocumented migrants, and increasing deportations. Now, where is it? Sorry, I was reading through this. Initially, his administration largely accommodated the enormous migrant caravans that made their way north from Central America toward the American border, doing little to stop them from crossing Mexico's highly porous southern border and allowing them to travel essentially unfettered across Mexican territory. This is where you see Trump getting upset that this whole illegal migration, we've had several 100,000 in this year, more than any other year in the previous decade. It has become a gold rush to get here, and you see these children dying because they're being walked through the desert by their families or by family members, or just taken and brought across, and it is really a big humanitarian crisis as well. The government has been unable to build the wall per se and stop these people. You've seen actually now there are privately funded border walls going up to where you're starting to see the public, the people along the southern border, push back against the narrative that no, this isn't a problem. It is very much a problem. It's a humanitarian crisis. It's a financial crisis. It is one of the more pressing issues we're having in our country right now. And I just wanted to kind of go through this article just briefly and kind of go through some of the comments here. Here we go. Tom, retired Florida junk man. This should have happened years ago. Mexican is playing the coy game of cooperating, not really cooperating until their economic interests are threatened. Thank you, Thank you again, President Trump, for doing what others have long feared to do. Now, I was a member of the Democratic Party for a very long time, voted for them every time. And this was always something they talked about, is border security, getting these illegals out so that low-wage, low-educated Americans could have those jobs and you would see wages increase. Basic economics, fewer unskilled workers, unskilled work will become more profitable for the people doing it. Maybe Mexico should put a product on our tariffs until immigration is stopped coming into Mexico from all countries south, blah, 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 such as Venezuela. Mexico has sovereign state as the United States. Anyway, you got all that. There's a lot of these comments I've noticed are very much are very much on that side. You're seeing that even on the New York Times, these people are not extremely far left. You see them kind of in the middle, or they're actually doing stuff. Sounds like a tactical move. That's what you got there. And here's Bloomberg. Bloomberg, of course, is a business-oriented and also a business on the left. Republican Senator Chuck Glassy, who supported many of Trump's previous moves on immigration, said plainly, this is a misuse of presidential tariff authority and counter to congressional intent. Now, pushback against this. Because Congress has failed to act and cannot seem to act in any way, shape, or form to benefit the U.S., that's where you're starting to see this. You're really seeing them freaking out because they're not acting. The president is pushing forward and they're starting to freak out. Negotiations on the deal Trump proposed as a successor to NAFTA have only recently concluded. His earlier tariffs on Mexican steel were lifted days ago. The new threat has nothing to do with those matters, the U.S. officials explained. It is about immigration, not trade. And here's the last part. Republicans who claim to stand for free trade, a long-standing party principle. This is the Bloomberg kind of going after Republicans, have lacked the courage of their convictions, and those who complain bitterly about President Obama's overreach have been awfully quiet on this president's flagrant abuse of executive authority. They should stop quivering and start legislating. I'm going to agree with only the last part of that. If free trade is your primary function, then you should go after the president. If you believe that we have a massive immigration crisis, which I believe we do, you should build the wall. If the wall is built and we get control of immigration, then we wouldn't need the tariffs. But if the tariffs are the only way to stem the tide, because Congress will not, cannot, does not know how to act, it's kind of up in the air. And that's just kind of what I had here, because they're taking a clear shot at Republicans over free trade. However, Republicans are also considered conservative, so they're more about traditional American values, security for the nation. So those would override the free trade, because if free trade means you have to replace your entire population and you lose the culture, you lose everything that makes the nation a nation, then yeah, you kind of need to get rid of free trade and go back the other way. The problems at the border are real, but they're partly of this administration's fault. Right, this administration has not been able to build a wall. More than 2 years after taking office, Trump has failed to adapt and change in immigration flow from single Mexican males seeking work from Central America, unaccompanied minors seeking refuge. No. Trump has failed to adapt to a change in immigration flows from a single Mexican male seeking work from Central American families to Central American families and unaccompanied minors seeking refuge. That's not Trump's fault. You still can't have millions of people coming across the border. That is just a failure in what's going on in reality. If you build the wall and these millions of people don't come sneaking across, they have to go through legal areas, you can stem the tide. But we're seeing states blatantly become sanctuary states, sanctuary cities, shutting down the ability of the government to function, and then blaming everyone but themselves for the millions of issues, billions of dollars, millions of people that's causing all these issues. And if Mexico gets involved, because they will have a real and economic, real monetary reason to stem the tide themselves and to push these people out, that could work. And if we have Mexico on board pushing these Central Americans out or keeping them in Mexico, yeah, I believe you'd see real change. But please like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you're thinking. That is just my 2 cents on this updated story. So have a great day.